Okay, so we're going to do question 4 in tutorial 10. So this question is also about externality. However, it is about positive externality instead of a negative externality as what we got in the previous question. Okay, so this is about a market for education, and the market demand is given by P equal to so demand 600 minus Q. Okay, where P is the market price and Q is the market output. Now the market supply is P equal to Q. Okay, so the supply or the marginal, basically the marginal cost. Okay, so I'll just have a supply, so P equal to Q. All right, so assume that every individual who get educated is going to get a spill, there is going to be a positive spillover or an externality that equal to Q on 2. So basically the idea is that if everyone in the society or in the economy is having education, then it's going to make the whole society better. It's going to reduce all sort of social problems, and that is going to create a better society. Okay, so it's not only benefit the consumers or the individuals who getting education, but it also benefit everyone in the society. Okay, so it make a whole society a better place. And so as a result, there is going to be a positive externality that is equal to Q on 2. In the economy. Okay, so the question asking you, okay, so I got a positive equal to Q on 2. All right, so part A is asking you to find a competitive market output and market price. Okay, so the competitive equilibrium is going to be the equilibrium at which the externality is not going to be taken into account. Okay, so we know that in a competitive equilibrium, demand will just be equal to supply. Okay, and we do not take into account a positive externality. And so therefore, if I equate these two demand and supply curves together, I'll get 60 minus Q equal to Q. And so therefore, 600 is going to be equal to 2Q. And so therefore, Q is going to be equal to 300. So I'll call this is Q star. Okay, and so the equilibrium price is going to be P star. So if you substitute a Q star either into the supply or demand curve, you find out the price is going to be equal to 300. All right, so that's pretty straightforward. Okay, so part B, asking you to write an expression for marginal social benefit associated with the education. Okay, so we know that marginal social benefit, which is basically the benefit for the whole society. Okay, now marginal means this is the benefit per unit. Okay, so for every unit of education, what is going to be the whole benefit of that to the society? So we know that it's going to be equal to the marginal private benefit. So it's going to be the benefit to each of the individual in the society, okay, plus the marginal externality. Okay, so the marginal positive externality, which is over here. All right, so this is the marginal. Okay, positive externality. Okay, so it's not only benefit the individual, but also benefit the whole society. And so that the marginal positive externality is going to be taken into account when we try to find a marginal social benefit. Okay, so what is the marginal private benefit? Now that is going to be derived from the demand curve over here. So we know that the demand is the marginal benefit for each of the consumer, okay? How much they are willing to pay, which is basically the marginal benefit for the individuals. Okay, so we know that already. So in this case, the demand curve is just basically the marginal private benefit, which is only taking into account the benefit for the consumers who is consuming the education. Okay, so that equal to 600 minus Q. Okay, so side is marginal private benefit. Okay, so for every unit of education, we know that the price is how much they are willing to pay per unit, and that would just be equal to their marginal benefit. Okay, in this case, it's the private benefits because it doesn't take into account the positive externality. So we plus the marginal positive externality, which is Q12, that is given to us. And so I get 600 minus Q12. All right, so that is part B. And part C asking you to find a socially optimal level of production and consumption of education. Okay. So to find a socially optimal level of output, we will just have to equate the marginal social benefit to the marginal cost, which is the supply curve. Okay. So the socially optimal level is going to be where marginal social benefit is equal to the supply, okay, or equal to the marginal cost, which is the supply. So I got 600 minus Q12, and I want that to be equal to Q. Okay, so I'm solving this equation. I get 600 equal to Q plus Q12 is 3Q12, and so therefore Q equal to 400. Okay, so outside this is Q S, which is socially optimal. All right. So part D asking you to could you suggest a subsidy to suppliers of education services that would correct the externality, okay, in an indicator that we lost in your diagram if the externality is not dealt with. Okay, so as you can see over here, so even though it's socially optimal for the economy to have 400 units of education, the firm will only want to supply 300 because that is the supply curve, and this is what the consumer is willing to pay. Okay, this is their private marginal benefit, and this is how much they're willing to pay. This is their demand curve. So even though there is some positive spillover in the society, and it's going to be optimal for the society to have 400 units of education because of the positive externality, it's actually only 300 units of education is supplied and consumed in the market because that is how much the firm would be willing to supply and how much the consumer would want to consume, okay, privately. So what would the government have to do in order to encourage the firm to be supplying more education? Okay, so one way to encourage that is to give a subsidy to the firms. Okay, so the government will be telling the firm, okay, every unit of education you are supplying to the market, I'm going to give you a certain amount of money per unit. Okay, now so if that's the case, how much would the subsidy have to be in order for the society to be producing 400 units of education? Okay, so I would say, all right, so government impose it as subsidy to firms. Okay, so easiest way to do is to draw a diagram and see what we need. Okay, so over here on the vertical I have dollars, on the horizontal I have quantity, and I have zero over here. Now, so what I do is going to draw a demand curve first. So that is P equal to 600 minus Q. So we know that vertical and horizontal intercept are 600. Okay, so it's just going to be a straight line with the same horizontal and vertical intercept, 600. Okay, and the supply curve is just P equal to Q, and so that is just again going to be a straight line going through the horizon with a slope of 1. Okay, so it's going to be like this. So this is the supply, this is the demand, which is the marginal private benefit. Okay, so supply P equal to Q. All right, so this is the competitive equilibrium without any without taking into account any external positive externality. Okay, so equilibrium is where the price equal to 300 and a quantity equal to 300. Okay, now if we take into account the spillover, then we know that the marginal social benefit is going to be equal to 600 minus Q12. Okay, so as you can see, the marginal social benefit is just having the same vertical intercept as the marginal private benefit, which is the demand curve. Okay, however, the slope is just basically half of the slope of the demand curve. All right, so okay, so therefore, on a diagram, it's going to have the same vertical intercept, which is 600, and it's going to, so the horizontal intercept is going to be at this point where it's 1,200. Okay, so what I do is I'm going to make my horizontal axis is a little bit longer. Okay, and so this is Q. Right, so this is the marginal social benefit. Okay, so socially optimal level of output is going to be at the point where marginal social benefit is going to intersect the supply curve. Okay, so it's going to cut the supply curve this point over here. So therefore, this is how much education that the society should be producing. Okay, however, which is QS equal to 400. All right, so we found earlier. Okay, so so this is how much the society should be producing. However, this is actually what the society is producing, which is a 300, because the consumer do not take into account the external that the education is going to create to the society. So they only take into account their private benefit. So and so this is how much they're willing to pay. This is their demand curve, and so this is how much education is going to be produced in a competitive equilibrium. Okay, so therefore, if there isn't anything, so if the government doesn't do anything to encourage the society to be producing 400 units of education, then it's going to create a deadweight loss, because whatever what the economy is producing is basically less than whatever it should be producing at the socially optimal level. Okay, so this point over here is the socially optimal level. Okay, so what is the dead weight loss that we want to show on the diagram? So basically, the dead weight loss is created from the quantity 300 to the quantity 400. So as you can see, from 3 to 400, if I go all the way up to here, okay, you can see that for any output between 300 and 400, the marginal social benefit, okay, which is the line over here, is higher than the marginal cost, which is the supply curve. Okay, so for any units from 300 to 400, you can see that this is the marginal social benefit, which is how much is going to benefit the society. And this is the supply curve, which is the marginal cost. Okay. So the social benefit is higher than the cost. So socially optimal, it should be produced. Okay, so these extra 100 units of output or extra 100 units of education, it should be produced because the benefit is still higher than the cost. Okay, however, because the benefit is not calculated properly, is not taking into account the positive externality. So that's why it's creating a dead weight loss. So the dead weight loss in this case is going to be the triangle between 3 and 400, and it's the area under the marginal social benefit and above the marginal cost. Okay, so it's going to be the little yellow triangle over here. Okay, all right, so this is the dead weight loss. All right, so to calculate the value of the dead weight loss, then we know that the high is going to be the 100, which is the difference between the two outputs, and the base. So if we are calculating the value here at the quantity 300 for the marginal social benefit, okay, so if I substitute Q equal to 300 into here, I get 300 on 2 is 150. 600 minus 150 is 450. Okay, so the value over here is 450. And so dead weight loss is going to be half of the high, which is, so the high is going to be here. All right, so which is the difference between 400 and 300 times the base, which is the difference between 450 and 300. So that is 100 times 150 times a half. So that is going to give me 7,500. Okay, so the dead weight loss is going to be 7,500 if the government doesn't do anything. Now, so if the government wants to impose some sort of subsidy in order to encourage more production or more supply of the education to be able to be at the level of socially optimal level of output 400, then what would the government have to do? Okay, so basically they can provide a subsidy such that the supplier of education is going to be more happy to supply, and so therefore they're going to be supplying more. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to shift the supply curve all the way to the right, okay, or downward, such that it's going to cut the demand curve at the quantity 400. Okay, so we want to shift the marginal cost curve, okay, such that it's going to cut the marginal private benefit or demand curve at the 400, and that is going to be the competitive equilibrium. Okay, so therefore So that is going to be, okay, so what we want is we want the supply curve to be cutting the demand curve at this point, okay? So this is the demand curve. This is the quantity 400 that we want. So we want the supply curve to be cutting this demand curve at this point, such that the competitive equilibrium is going to be the same as the socially optimal level equilibrium. Okay. So therefore, we want to shift the supply curve to the right. Okay. Like this. Okay, so we want to shift the supply curve to S dash. So what would the government have to do in order to shift the supply curve to the right? By the amount, the difference between here and here. Okay, so what's the difference between the two lines? Okay, what is the gap between the two lines? Okay, so it's pretty straightforward to calculate. So as you can see, at the quantity 400, the difference is going to be, so if we go back to the marginal social benefit, you're going to get the value over here. Okay, so if I so I'll say the government should impose a subsidy to the firms to shift the supply curve rightward or to the right, such that it will cut the demand curve at the quantity equal to 400, which is the socially optimal level of output. Okay, so we want to calculate what is the subsidy, how much per unit should the government subsidize. So that is just going to be the gap between the two supply curve over here that we want to calculate. So what I want to do is to find out the value at this point and the values at this point, and from there I will have the gap between the two lines. Okay, and that is going to see that the government should be giving out per unit. Okay, so at quantity QS equal to 400, the marginal private benefit is just going to be the demand curve. So so that's the point over here. Okay, so if we go to the demand curve, quantity 400, then the price is going to be 200. So that is going to be the point over here. Okay, now at the quantity equal to 400, what is the value of the marginal social benefit? And that is going to be the point up here. So the marginal social benefit is here, Q equal to 400, so that becomes 2. So this is 400. Okay. So the gap between these 2 points is going to be 200, and that is the amount of subsidy the government should be giving to the firm. So basically the government say, okay, every unit you are producing, so every unit of education you are supplying, you are going to get another 200 per unit. Okay. So having said that, then it's going to reduce basically the cost for the firm. So every unit that the firm is producing, the cost is now lower by 200. Okay, so therefore, that is why the supply curve is now moving to the right by 200. So basically, the cost is reduced by 200. Okay, so the subsidy up to 100 per unit. Okay, it should be imposed or should be given to the sellers, okay, or to the firms. So then that is going to reduce the marginal cost for the firms, okay, by 200. Okay, so therefore it's going to shift the supply curve downward, okay, in a parallel manner, okay, by 200.